Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, we're going to do a little cheating. We're going to use a stencil and mask set to do a little cheating to make sure we know how something's going to turn out before we commit with paint. And what I'm going to be using is a mask of an ankh. And the reason why I love using that symbol is because of what it means. Now, to the ancient Egyptians, it meant eternal life. But the symbols that actually make it up, it means the breath of life. And to me, that means live in the moment, enjoy the present, those kinds of things. So that's what I'm always reminded of anytime I incorporate this symbol into my play. Start out by grabbing a stack of your gel prints. Any color, any kind of patterns, whatever you've got, just grab a bunch of them. So this is the point where we're going to do a little bit of cheating using the mask and the stencil in combination. I'm actually only going to be using the mask when it comes time to putting the paint on there. But the stencil is what I'm going to use to help me find where I exactly want to place it so I know before I commit with paint what it's going to look like. I'm going to test out different parts here on the gel print, moving it around and seeing which colors are underneath there, which ones show up the way I want them to. And once I find that spot, then I can put that mask on there and add the paint with confidence. Rather than guessing, rather than wondering, this is a great way to know before you make that paint commitment. Once I've got it placed just where I want it, then what I need to do is bring the mask in. I need to put the mask in that same spot. So that means I'm just going to lift up the stencil, holding it in place, and put that mask right in its place. Once it's positioned, then the next thing you have to do is remove the stencil. So hold the mask in place and then lift the stencil away. Everything's positioned, so the next thing to do is bring in the paint. I've got some black heavy body paint that I'm using here, and I'm just going to use a cosmetic sponge and get color all around this. Now the reason why I'm using a heavy body paint is because it's thicker. And you'll notice I'm going in an up and down motion, using a thick paint, and going in that up and down motion is going to give me a nice crisp image. I want nice sharp edges for this one. So that's why I'm doing those two things. It also helps to use a small amount of paint because imagine if you came in there with a whole flood of paint, it would run underneath the stencil. So thicker paints, going in an up and down motion, and using as little paint as what you can get away with, that will give you the crispest and clearest image. And so why am I going so far around the mask but not filling up the entire page? Well, hang in there, keep watching, and I'll have that answer for you in a moment. Oh, and by the way, these stencils are part of my new Egyptian collection from over at StencilGirl Products, and I'll have a link down below for you where you can check out all the designs in the set. And when you pull the mask up, what is revealed is all that wonderful color waiting below. Some days I have commitment issues where when I see something colorful, I've got this idea and I'm wondering, well, is it going to look the way I think it's going to look? And being able to put the stencil over it to actually see it before I commit with the paint, well, that makes those days a whole lot easier. At long last, I picked the spot on this paper where I want that mask to be. So I'm going to line it up carefully here by just putting it right underneath the stencil. It's actually a really easy way to line stuff up. Holding the mask in place and then lift that stencil out of the way, and it's time to bring in the paint. I'm using gel prints to do this, but of course you can use any kind of paper that you want, any kind of pattern that's on it. And I'm using black here because that's what I felt like doing today, and naturally you can use any color of paint that you want to get the look that you're going for. Once I've got the black paint all around the mask, then I can actually move it out of the way because I won't need it to fill in the rest of the black paint. You see, I want to have something that is kind of rectangular here because I'm going to turn these into cards. So that's why I'm kind of eyeballing the size of the rectangle that I want to use. For you engineers that are watching, you absolutely can measure away. I do not find any joy in measuring, so I prefer to go with the eyeball method. Here I've got a bunch of them that I've done. Black paint is all completely dry with my about rectangles around each of them. So what I'm going to do is head on over to the paper trimmer and I'm going to cut out my rectangles. I'm in the neighborhood of the size that I wanted for this, but it wasn't exact at any point. So that means sometimes there are going to be bits around the edges where there's a little bit of white showing that I didn't want. That's really easy to correct by just taking that cosmetic sponge and putting a little more black paint right along those edges, anywhere where it didn't go far enough out before. Now I'm getting a little close to my color there, so what I'm going to do is just bring the mask back in. I'm going to set it right on top and then I'll be able to add some more black paint on top of that without getting it anywhere where I didn't want it to go. It's prudent before you go to the next step of attaching these onto the card to let that black paint completely dry. Now that my paint is mostly dry, yeah, I'm not that prudent. It's still a little bit damp in places. So test out your stenciling there, see how it fits on your card. If you're happy with it, then slap some adhesive on there and get it stuck on. I'm using a double-sided tape here. You can use glue stick, whatever kind of glue you've got, whatever you like to use. Whatever will stick it on there, just stick that thing right on there. I got really lucky on this one that the size was just right to fit on the cards. They're not all like this. Some of them don't line up quite that nicely, like this one. It's not quite the size that I would have preferred to have on the card. So what I'm going to do when I put this on, I'm going to make a little adjustment. And I find doing adjustments like this a lot easier than actually measuring. So when I put this on here, you'll notice that I'm putting it not in the center, but more over to the left. And the reason why I'm doing that is then I can just trim off a little bit of the white card over there, and magically it will all be lined up. When I'm all done, people will think I was actually doing this carefully and measuring and really thinking it through, when you know the truth of I'm eyeballing it and then just cutting stuff down after I've attached it. When I make cards like this, I like to add a little touch onto the envelope. That way when people get it in the mail, they know it's something special inside. So I'm going to take another design from this stencil, the Eye of Horus here, and I'm just going to stencil it on the corner of the envelope. So what's that Post-it note there for? Well, it's to protect the envelope because I have a habit of stenciling a little bit farther than where I think I will. So by putting it there, that's going to protect the envelope and keep it nice and crisp and white. Here are the envelopes and cards all together. And originally, I thought of just making a few to send to friends, but now that I see them together, I'm thinking I'm going to wrap these up and it would make a great quick gift to give. Thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, if you had some fun, if you learned something helpful, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll know as soon as I've got a new one out. If you want to check out this stencil as well as all of my other designs for StencilGirl Products, there's a link down below to take you right on over. Well, thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.